Hi, this is Ted. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the first chatbot ever, Eliza. So let's get into it. Our presentation for today. And here it is. Let's play from the start. This is Eliza, the first chatbot, EA. The first chatbot, Eliza's stage setting. I want to set up the stage for Eliza, the schools of thought at that time. There are 5 of them, and I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the dominant 2. Marvin Minsky. Who's Marvin Minsky? I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to introduce you to him. He's an outspoken convert who helped set the stage for keeping one in control, dominating the other. Joseph Weizenbaum. I'm going to introduce you to him. He is the creator of Eliza. And I'm going to introduce you to Eliza and why it was made, how it was made, the results of its being made once it got out in the open. And then I'm going to talk about something called anthropomorphism. And finally, I'm going to talk about the Bible. Background stage. There are 5 tribes, their groupings, different opinions. This is how you should build AI. This will get us to human level intelligence. We have the evolutionists, Bayesians, analogizers, symbolists, connectionists. All right, these are the 5. I'm going to focus on symbolists and connectionists. Building AI. Building AI with the symbolist AI group, you have symbols, rules, and logic. What are symbols? Symbols are things that have meaning for us. If I was an alien coming down to this earth, I've never seen a written language. I look at what's below here in the bottom half, and what am I seeing? It makes no sense whatsoever. To me, as a human, because I have dealt with languages, I can tell, I would assume, this is not a real language, but I would assume this is some kind of real language that I don't understand. But I understand that part of it. The alien does not, because he's never had a language, he or she. Or it. We don't know what's up there. Anyway, so this alien comes and sees this and it has no meaning. Numbers have no meanings. Signs have no meaning. Graphs have no meaning. None of this has made any sense whatsoever. These are all symbols. And those symbols have meaning to us. Now, rules. There are certain rules that we have when we put together AI under the symbolist AI group. If the user input contains my mother, then respond with, tell me more about your family relationship. See, this would be something I'd type in the computer because it's a rule. It's how to manipulate those symbols. Logic comes in as well. You got to have things that are logical. You can't just have nonsense. I have a cup of water. I'm going to tip it upside down. I have to type in and tell AI, tell the computer, that means the water will fall onto the ground. But it'd be hard for me to explain that in words, but I still have to be logical. And the example I use is all birds can fly, which is a bad premise, but I'm going to use it anyway. All birds can fly. If X is a bird, then X can fly. That's logic. Poor logic because I have a bad premise. Symbolism is good for patient diagnosis, Siri, risk assessment, legal documents, stuff like that. It doesn't mean that modern day Siri is totally symbolism. It could be borrowing from other groups as well. Nevertheless, symbolism is pretty dominant in a lot of these. There's a downside to symbolism, though, because you have to type in all these rules. And those rules take time. And you're going to be having to type millions and millions of rules. Stuff that we get right away, you got to put in tons of rules just so it can reproduce something even close to what we have. And maybe beyond what we have in certain areas, but that's another story. All right, connectionist AI is built on brain structure. We got neurons going on in the brain, and they have connections with other neurons. And those connections get bigger and smaller, more and more important. And that's what they're looking at and saying, oh, let's do that with our nodes. We'll create these nodes. And those nodes are going to have connections between each other, and some will be strong and some will be not so strong. And that's a really basic look at it, and I'm not going to get any further than that right now because I got to move on. It's built on brain structure. We call it neural networks. You'll hear that a lot. Well, now you'll know what neural networks are. It's just basically built on the brain. And I will talk about this in the future, by the way, but it's built on the brain's neurons and those connections between the neurons. We have, by the way, about 100 billion neurons in our heads. Dang, it's a lot. All right, and there's all different kinds of weights. We're going to call them weights, those connections between the two, whether they might be heavy or they might be light. They might stop entirely. New ones might be created. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on in our heads. It goes beyond my understanding, and I will tell you that right now. So far, I've talked about 5 tribes. 2 stand out, for me anyway, and they do stand out in history as well, symbolists and connectionists. And they compete. Oh my goodness, do they compete. Let's talk about Marvin Minsky. He was very strongly, first of all, he is a pro-connectionist. He builds the first connectionist computer model, basically. And it is called SNARK. Yeah, he's doing a great job. I don't know when he starts falling away from connectionism, but 1957 perceptron model was put out, and that was by Frank Rosenblatt. Definitely after that, he's more and more feeling like we have hit a brick wall we can't get past with connectionism. It's not going any farther. Let's return to and stay only with symbolic, or dominantly with symbolic anyway. So he co-founded MIT AI Lab in 1969. He wrote a book called Perceptrons. And that book put pretty much a marker on the gravesite of connectionism, at least temporarily. Connectionism will survive more as a zombie walking around for a little while, but eventually and slowly growing. I put down, and this might be wrong, it was my understanding at the time that symbolism was dominant from 69 to 2012, and connectionism was behind. That's the zombie waiting behind. Now, I did find out recently, and it might probably be true. I have to verify. That's why I can't say too much, but it could be that Bayesian took over for a couple decades in there, starting with 1990. I'm going to leave it there, though. I'll get back to you on that, whether Bayesian has or not. Maybe I'll get back to you. Joseph Weizenbaum, let's meet him. He's an MIT computer scientist and professor. He's the creator of ELIZA. Why did he make it? Well, he decided to experiment to learn about human and computer reaction, their communication. And how did he make it? His own model. He designed his own model. And that model was very popular in the 60s, but fell out of favor for other models. In fact, it kind of completely died and was lost. And a few AI archaeologists have discovered it, found it back in, I think, 2022 or 23. And then they've been able to, from his notes, that's what they found, from his notes, been able to put together the original model of what he had. That doesn't mean that we lost ELIZA. It just means the original model of ELIZA has been lost. It was reproduced in other language. So his own model had a lot of symbols and rules. It was less complex than symbolism, and he used Rogerian psychology. Rogerian psychology, Carl Rogers basically developed this psychology that did a lot of questions, and it was very non-judgmental in the questions. So how are you feeling today? Okay, and have you felt that way very long? Well, tell me about that. Oh, so you're saying that you are sad because you lost a job. I can understand that. So it's very understanding, but it's also allowing the patient to lead the conversation in all this. And it restates a lot of what the patient has said. Now this he found, he looks at this model of psychology and he finds this is brilliant, this is awesome because it'll fit well with a computer. The computer does not have understanding. It doesn't have context. It doesn't have emotions. So all you do is throw in those questions and repeat stuff. So you're sad and stuff like that. It gets people feeling like they're understood and all this that's going on. So it's kind of a trick. ELIZA, when he had finished it took him a couple years to make it. And his secretary, who had watched him busily working for so many years, asked him, can I try it? And he said, sure. He needed people to try it out, see what would happen. And she starts typing away, asking it questions. And in a short time, she looks up and says, do you mind leaving the office? All right. So he left the office, and and that made a profound effect on him. He saw how people were beginning to react to it. And she may have been the first one. By the way, we don't know the name of that woman. One MIT student did a deep search trying to find out who it was, and he cannot come up with it. Now, it eventually gets out there. He asked a psychologist friend to come in and deal with it just to see his reaction. It turned out that he was loving it, just like the secretary. His psychologist friend loves it and says this could help in psychology so much. And he brought scientists in, and they had the same reaction. And eventually Radio Shack gets it, and it gets out in the media, and it becomes a hit. And that lasted for quite a while. Anyway, I don't know how long it lasted. I do remember being a kid, hearing something about it. I wasn't a kid, I was already an adult. But Victor Frankenstein had the same kind of reaction that he did. When he realized what he had made, he was shocked. And he probably regretted what he did. But I'm not sure. I think he may have felt like it would have gotten out anyway. Somebody would have figured this out. But he really felt like it changed his whole opinion and his whole thinking about computers and AI. When he realized what is going on, he turned against computers and AI. He wrote a book in 1976 about computer power and human reason. And what he really, what bothered him more than anything else, people formed emotional bonds with machines. And he didn't like that at all. So far we've been talking about the stage of AI at this time period, the tribes, Marvin Minsky's influence in turning AI to symbolism and away from connectionism. Joseph Weizenbaum's discovery, people connected emotionally to computers, and how he didn't like that at all. It really brought a lot of sorrow to him. So why are we so apt to emotionally connect with something that is not human? It's called anthropomorphism. It's the tendency to read human things into something else. For example, I might have a pet, and I just really read a lot of human stuff into it. Now, I think part of that is legit. If my dog is unhappy, you can kind of sense it. You know it. Once in a while, once you get to know your dog. Whenever we're on vacations, come back, our cat's always ticked off at us. There's different things. So there's emotions I can understand and empathize with my pet animal. But I might read more into my pet than is really happening. I might read more human into it than is true. This can also happen with, all right, I'm doing the laundry the other day. I'm walking by 2 bikes I have down in the basement, mountain bikes, and I look at them and without even thinking, hi guys, and then I go upstairs. And immediately I think, I just anthropomorphized my bikes. And it's not that I know they're nothing but metal and rubber. I know that. But for some reason, I read something human into it. B.B. King, who has a guitar he calls Lucille, because that's his baby. And even me saying it's his baby, we're anthropomorphizing. So it's a natural tendency. I might do that with my car. I might do that back in World War II. They did that with their airplanes. So you call them by women's names, by men's names, by different names or whatever, and you anthropomorphize stuff. And this is a level which I think is very natural and very normal and not unhealthy at all. But AI is built to mimic human behavior and mimic human creativity, mimic our emotions, and mimic our intelligence, and even outdo us at these things. It has no emotions, and yet, if you notice when it was talking to me, it seemed to be sympathizing with me. ChatGPT. Was it truly sympathizing? Did it really have empathy for it? No, not at all. It's only a program. But it was so close to human, in fact, better than a lot of people who say, I feel sad today. Just get over it. You won't see that in AI. It knows how to deal with things. Why? Because it's been trained to, but it is not empathy at all. It's not something that is at all legit as far as from a human, emotional, or contextual situation. It doesn't know anything. It's responding to what I say, period. All right. But because it's so good at copying, and it can copy our songs, it can copy our emotions, it can copy so many things to almost perfection, if not perfection, the human voice and music and art and creativity. In fact, a lot of times this is far more creative than I am, than many of us. All right, Genesis 2:7 says, "The Lord formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life." He's doing this for Adam. "And the man became a living being." Now, before that, literally speaking, Adam was dust from the ground. Perhaps God made a clay model and breathed into him, and he became a man. The literal young earther, like R.C. Sproul and John Piper, R.C. Sproul was a convert to literal young earth, they would believe that in 6 days God created the world, and out of the dust of the ground, he created man and then breathed his life into him, all in one day. Now, the evolutionist Christian will say, and this is somebody like William Craig's Mytho History, he gets into a possibility of there being evolution and that being legit. The people, the evangelicals, we weren't quite evangelicals until the 50s. Before them were the fundamentalists, and before the fundamentalists, conservative Christians in the late 19th century, early 20th century were finding ways to bring evolution into Genesis chapter 1, doing some creative jobs with that. Be that as it may, what I want to point out is any way you look at it, whether we're dealing with evolution, God is breathing into an animal and it becomes human. It is that breath of God which changes everything, which gives life, which gives sentience, which gives emotions and context and the brilliance that we have. Now, once again, maybe 100 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, we might have computers being far better at getting context, but it'll never get the emotions. It'll never get the sentience. It'll never get the breath of God. Why, in the long run, there will never be a ghost in the machine. You all have a good day.